what advice would you give to someone trying to get funding for a project?
Wonderful question. And as a project that we are always looking for more funding, I would say that there's a number of ways to approach funding. You know, obviously, like I think you just mentioned the word family. I believe family is a great way. It's also a good way, a starting point to test your what is it that you're doing. But I'll tell you, funding from family is very complicated and it's going to cause a lot of stress long term. So if you can avoid it, I would definitely avoid family or friends. So you know, in our experience, what I would tell you about the importance of seeking funding is to really learn. There's a lot of funding available that people are just genuinely unaware of, and so you know, like there is, I would say definitively one of the first places that I, as one who has done many different things, received funding is from what we call county projects. So the county has different divisions. You know, again, I live in a city, but the city is just one smaller place, and the city also has different funding sources. So I would go and talk to local officials about what exists in your city, in your county, and then even more your state. Right? Those are essential and important, and you will never learn everything that exists, even from the start. So even if you ask the people in those organizations, they're not going to share everything because either they don't know it or they don't care to share it. But remember that there's a lot of funding opportunities, whether it be grants or other types of funding, including loans, or so on. So that's the first way I would. Then I would also say go to lending institutions. But before you even get to the lending institutions, what I'll tell you is that a lot of the monies that are available want to have you prove that you can do what you say you're going to do. And so they want to do what they call matching. So somebody will agree to give you $100,000 if you can match it. So if you can match the $100,000, then they'll give it to you. But then where do you get that 100,000? So you have to play that game very wisely. So you need to go to multiple places and convince someone to go first with the giving because you have somebody else waiting to match what you've received. That's where it's good to then get to what I would call a corporate sponsor. So if you can go to, some large company, let's just for the sake of it saying some beverage company who is willing to give you funding based on your business status. For example, if you have a nonprofit, it's much more likely that somebody's foundation, so let's just say a large corporation has their for-profit arm and they have a foundation arm that's set up to do good work. And really it's just another promotion for the for-profit side. But they're helping people because it looks good so that people support their for-profit side. So you go to that foundation side of their business and you say, hey, this is my project, this is what I intend to do, and we're looking for funding, and if you can get them to give you funding, then those funds can be matched with state, county, or city funding. Then there is national, what we call federal funding. There's a lot of things. So they have these different national endowments for the arts, national endowments for the humanities. There are also great funding sources for, I know they have larger pools of funding. So if you're looking for beyond 100,000 and so on, these are the great places to look. They also, in South Florida, I know they're not in every state, but for example, there's the Knight Foundation. And the Knight Foundation gives millions of dollars every year to people who are doing good works. So if you have an idea, creative thing that is going to, again, lift up the community around you or nationally or whatever, they do provide funding for things like that. So there's no shortage of places, entities, grant organizations. The Community Foundation of Broward County is just here for Broward County, and they have definitely done very well by us. They're donors, people who give them money. People, when they pass, leave $100 million to the Community Foundation or to other entities like this for them to fund projects that those people say they want to see. So if someone passes away and in their endowment, they say, listen, I want to see, more trees planted, along this highway. I-95, we want trees planted. Then someone who has those goals, I'm going to plant trees along I-95 and receive those funds. But if you don't search for it, you will never find it. And then, again, not that you, but you need to obviously do the things that allows you to get funding from other sources, like banks and so on. But those are pretty standardized if you have the requisite credit scores and ability to show how you repay what you've received. And those are fairly simple, but you just have to be prepared to match their requirements. Those are some of the things that, to me, like I said, it beats asking for family and friends. But without question, if you are doing a project that is worthy, then you don't have to ask your family and friends. You set it up and you say to everybody who supports this work to give, and then your family and friends will also give along with the public. So, there are a lot of ways. I caution going to family and friends, but again, it might be the easiest way if you don't know of other ways. But really, at the end of the day, what I think is the best way is if you can start small, like scale, such that you can start to prove the success of the endeavor. And then you can go to lending institutions who will lend you funds. Again, banks are risk averse, so they want to fund things that are sure. So if you can show that the model works, and yes, I want to make, let's just say headphones. Let's say headphones here. I'm not Dr. Dre that has, $500 million to invest into the work, but if you have a great idea, of a way to change the big headphones and not have the buds that follow the ear, but some in between, some hybrid, and you come up with the idea, maybe you patent the idea as a safeguard, and then you start small. You find ways to create the same works without doing it on the scale of starting with, 55 million shipping out to stores week one, but you build around a community. So you look at what's your niche, who can you reach quickly, who wants these things. So if it's, let's say, for example, you want to target teenagers between 16 and 18 who really want these specialized headphones, and then you tailor to that smaller market, you get them to buy in, you show the proof that the concept works, and then you take the entire package, again with a great business plan, to a bank or to any type of lending institution who sees that the scope of the project, believes in it, and then will give you funding to go larger.
And last one, right? You brought up demographics. I always tell people the importance of a niche, right? Everyone thinks business is like you need the whole world. And I say, you need your customer base. What advice would you give to one in regards to really pinpointing their demographic and really honing in on the niche for their product or service?
I think the most important thing there is always, you got to look at who values what you're offering. So, therefore you need to know your community, whatever community you're going after. The truth is that, I might want to create a product that I'm going to sell to a particular community, but the community doesn't want to pay that price for that. I think specifically, I'm a photographer. I'm so many things, but I'm a photographer. That's my day-to-day life, right? And as a photographer, my community doesn't value the work I do at a price that I want to sell it at. So I can't sell to my community. I got to find a community that values me that way. And so I've done that. And what I've done is, instead of selling to individuals that can't pay what I want to get paid, I sell to corporations. And they don't have any problem paying what I'm asking, because their funding stream, and they understand that what I do for them brings them greater dollars than I charge them. So it's worth it for them. And if somebody says, hey, can you shoot my daughter's birthday party? And I say, well, for your daughter's birthday party, it's going to be $1,500. She's like, pay somebody else $5 and they would take their iPhone, which takes great pictures, and get it. And, why are you calling me? Yeah. Call a person and charge $5. I'm not in their marketplace. My price point and it doesn't work out. So that's really the key thing in thinking about any business venture, that you have to understand how the people who you want to sell your product or service to values what you are selling, and what the alternatives that they have to get the same type of product.
And I love this type of reason. I got one more question, right? I apologize for holding it, right? Yeah. Is it realistic to sell a quality product to a lower income demographic?
Absolutely. You ever heard of a thing called Jordans? you can sell anything to a lower demographic. You just have to create the desire in that demographic for your specific product. You can charge anything for the right product, but you have to create the demand for the product first.
Let me rephrase the question. So it's like I know the Jordan example be more like a corporate, and that's a real machine to create that idea and that prestige. But say for just a average person now, right? How would that work with like production and everything and manufacturing? Because they have a lower quantity, they will have a higher cost. But how would that work out in regards to not a corporation, but for a small business person?
But it's going to depend on the will of the person. Unfortunately, it won't happen for many people. But you absolutely can start something without major funding behind you, but you have to be extremely innovative. So it has to be something that's going to capture people. I don't know, your ages, but I remember when I was a young man, there are so many different things that came along that didn't make sense to me. Oh my God, sorry. One of which, for example, again, this is corporate, so it's wrong, but I wanted to bring it to the attention, like that I think called a swatch. And I never understood why it was such a hot item. So, but it's also corporate things. So it doesn't match your specific question. But there are other things like that. I remember when, let's just even look at people who again, this is not a high-end item per se, but let's just say, for example, and I really have to run after this, like say people selling music on the back of their car. Like, typically you would want to, when I was again younger, we used to buy vinyl. And to buy vinyl, there was no shortcut. But then when CDs came out, it was like, oh wow, now you could burn a CD on your computer. So people could literally start a hustle where you didn't have to go through a production plant. You could print 25 CDs, which typically would print 25 million, but you print 25, you go out and sell them, you get the money, you turn it around, you buy some more blanks, you burn your CD and so on. And within that context, there are ways that you can do a business, but distribution is critical, and you have to scale accordingly. You have to take chances. So, if you could afford 25 CDs first, you print them, you get the revenue from those 25 you sold, and now the next time you print 250 because obviously you're selling with a margin, and now you have that cash, and you're going to take a chance. And then when you sell those 250, instead of spending it on some nice items for yourself, you then take that same revenue and then you reinvest and you print 2,500 and so on. And that's how you scale. But you have to be committed, and you have to, in your mind, know that whatever revenues you bring in, they're not to be spent, they're to reinvest in the bigger project.
Key part, I hope people listen to what this man said. It's supposed to be reinvested, fire.
Well, let me hear you say, man.